Dear children, welcome back to the online class of Sri Gokulam Public School. Last class we started the chapter Rural Development and we discussed various key issues of rural development. Today let's talk one of the important key issues of rural development, namely diversification of agriculture. You know, agriculture is the primary sector of our economy. When we talk about rural development, we have to talk about agricultural development. Or when we talk about how to uplift or how to bring progress and prosperity in the village economy, we have to talk about how to bring progress and prosperity in Indian agriculture. Because the progress and prosperity of our village economy depends upon progress and prosperity of our agrarian sector. So let us talk about diversification of agriculture. Agriculture is the mainstay of our economy. We know our farmers are suffering from seasonal and disguised unemployment. Due to disguised unemployment, production and productivity is low in Indian agriculture. Not only that, our agriculture is characterized by the existence of surplus laborers or excess laborers. That is why disguised unemployment occurs, ultimately leads to low production and productivity. So when we talk about rural development or agricultural development, first of all, we need to find enough employment for the people in rural areas. In this context, diversification of agriculture or diversification of productive activities in rural areas are very important. When we talk about diversification, first of all we have to talk about diversification of crop production and diversification of productive activity. Diversification of crop production, that is agricultural crops. It means we have to produce diverse variety of crops. We have to produce diverse variety of crops, that is multiple cropping pattern. From single cropping pattern to multiple cropping pattern. Okay? That is, it shows a shift of subsistence farming to commercial farming, or moving from food grains cultivation to cash crops cultivation. That is commercial farming, production for markets. Depends upon the price structure in the market. Okay. So first important aspect of diversification of agriculture is diversification of agricultural crops production. That is, instead of cultivating a single crop or a specialized crop, we have to cultivate diverse variety of crops. Okay, that is, we have to promote commercial farming, production for the market. That is a movement from food grains cultivation to cash crops cultivation. Depends upon the price structure in the market. Okay? That is multiple cropping pattern instead of single cropping pattern. To diversify our agricultural crops, we have to shift to multiple cropping pattern and we have to shift to commercial farming, as well as shift of cropping pattern from food crops to cash crops or commercial crops. Okay. Second one is diversification of productive activity. When we talk about production diversification in rural areas, we have to talk two types of diversification. Number one, diversification by developing agro-based industries or non-farm sectors. Agro-based industries, by developing agro-based industries or non-farm sectors. What do you mean by that? Agro-based industries, for example, food processing, oil processing industries, leather industry, etc. in rural areas. What do you mean by development of agro-based industries or development of non-farm activities? Food processing, oil processing, leather industry, etc. in the rural areas. We know agriculture promotes industries by providing raw materials. Agro-based industries, as I told you, examples: flour mills, oil mills, food processing industries, leather industry, etc. By developing such dynamic subsectors, we can diversify productive activities in rural areas. Moreover, by expanding agriculture and its allied activities, related activities, we can bring diversification in the rural areas. What do you mean by expanding agriculture and its allied activities? What are the allied activities? Allied activities means animal husbandry, fisheries, etc. By developing animal husbandry, livestock, cattle rearing, fisheries, poultry, etc. Have you heard about horticulture? Horticulture, development of flowers, fruits, vegetables, spices, medicinal plants, plantation crops, etc. on a commercial basis. Okay? What is horticulture? Cultivation of flowers, fruits, vegetables, spices, plantation crops, medicinal plants, etc. on a commercial basis. So, we can bring diversification by expanding agriculture and its allied activities also. Okay? And apart from that, we can bring diversification in rural areas by developing cottage-based, household-based industries also, like handloom industry, crafts, handicrafts, pottery, etc. Okay? So, how can you talk about diversification in rural areas? By developing productive resources. Okay? Either by expanding our crop production or by developing our agro-based industries or activities in the non-farm sector, or by developing our household-based or cottage-based industries. And more important, by expanding our agriculture and allied activities. What do you mean by agriculture and allied activities? For example, horticulture, cultivation of flowers, fruits, etc. on a commercial basis. Okay. What do you mean by allied activities? Animal husbandry, fisheries, etc. Okay. By developing such diversified activities, we can diversify production in rural areas and we can bring progress and prosperity in rural areas for rural development or development of our village economy. Now, let's talk about the significance or importance of diversification. Reduce the risk from agricultural sector. Agricultural sector always uncertain, suffering from seasonal and disguised unemployment. Agriculture depends upon monsoon. Okay, if monsoon good, we will get good crops. Monsoon fails, agriculture also fails. Crop failures are there. Okay, so such risks can be avoided, by production diversification in agriculture. Provide sustainable livelihood options to people living in villages. Sustainable livelihood options. How? By providing alternative employment opportunities. How providing sustainable livelihood options? By providing alternative employment opportunities in the agricultural sector itself. Okay. By expanding agriculture and allied activities. Okay. So, diversification of productive activities ensure sustainable livelihood options to people living in villages by providing alternative livelihood options or alternative employment opportunities to the people living in villages, ultimately to raise their living standards and quality of life. That is the most striking aspect of rural development. One of the key issues, we have to raise the living standards of the people in rural areas by providing alternative employment options or sustainable livelihood options, so as to raise their living standards and quality of life. And provide ecological balance. That is, by protecting our rural environment, our rural ecosystem also. Balancing our ecological balance by protecting our rural environment and our rural ecosystem. Okay. So, how can we talk about agricultural diversification? We can bring about diversification of production through various ways. What are they? Number one, as you know, diversification of crop production. That is multiple cropping pattern. Shift of cropping pattern, from single cropping pattern to multiple cropping pattern by cultivating diverse variety of crops for the market. Okay. Second is diversification of productive activity. How? By developing agro-based industries or by developing activities in the non-farm sector and by developing cottage-based or household industries. Thirdly, by developing or by expanding agriculture, by expanding allied activities. Okay? And this is very important so as to ensure sustainable livelihood options by providing alternative employment opportunities to the people living in rural areas. Okay? That is about agricultural diversification or diversification of productive activities in rural areas, ultimately to bring progress and prosperity of the rural economy. Okay? Thank you.